Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, the whole crew styling when we step out of the car. Bouncers lift the rope and the crowd goes off. 20 shots to the table, we don't even hit the bar.
We want to welcome back our audience to What's New at ArtSpeak. I'm Beverly Musey, the Chief Student Correspondent at ArtSpeak, and I'm talking with Ray Ellman, the founder and editor-in-chief of ArtSpeak. So today we're going to be talking about one of our recently published interviews with educator and author Christina Lane. So Ray, tell us a little bit more about this interview.
Well, first of all, great to see you again. And I just want to say, if people notice that my mouth is doing funny things, it's because I went to see the world premiere of Dangerous Days, the play written by author Nicholas Griffin, who we've interviewed twice for ArtSpeak. And I went to the after party afterward, and I woke up this morning with a scratchy voice, so I'm sucking on a Ricola. So if I look a little weird with my mouth, that's why.
We hope you
But
feel better.
You introduced me to Christina Lane, and you met her at the library in Miami Shores, right?
Yes.
And she's active in it. She's written a number of books. She's active in an area that's of particular interest to me, and that's the issue of the plight of women in the film industry. And I have a friend that I've known since she was a teenager named Maria Geiss, who went to Wellesley and then went to USC to study filmmaking. When she got out, she got to direct a major film about a nonfiction film about soccer in the UK. And then she never got another film to direct. And what she found herself being systematically discriminated against by the old boy network of the film industry. And eventually she, I think, teamed up with the ACLU and is suing the film industry. We did an interview with her for ArtSpeak a few years ago when she was at the Miami Film Festival with a film called This Changes Everything, which was, she was one of the featured people in it, but it had all kinds of prominent film industry people like Meryl Streep and Gina Davis and Reese Witherspoon and Natalie Portman, Sherry Lansing. So all these people talking about this particular issue. So then you, Beverly, introduced me to Christina, who's written books about this issue. And she wrote a book, I can't remember the name of it, about feminism. What's it called? I know the cover's red.
Ray, the name of the book is Feminist Hollywood: From Born in Flames to Point Break.
And her most recent book is called Phantom Lady. And I know it's got a subtitle. What's the subtitle? Joan Harrison and...
I believe it's Joan Harrison, the Forgotten Woman, Hollywood producer Joan Harrison, the Forgotten Woman behind Hitchcock.
Okay. And as many people are, I'm a huge fan of Alfred Hitchcock, and I'm from the generation that actually watched black and white films that were made before the Second World War. So I've seen probably 90% of Hitchcock's films. And it was interesting in your conversation with Christina in the book she wrote, to learn how there was a woman named Joan Harrison who started off as Hitchcock's secretary and then became one of the primary moving forces behind his successes. And she was nominated for an Academy Award for Rebecca, I believe, the great film. And she also was very involved with the TV production of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which I watched when I was a young kid growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And, you know, the music for anybody who grew up in that era was and everybody knew that Alfred Hitchcock's silhouette would come onto the screen. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about Christina from your perspective.
Yes, so it was unexpected that I'd meet Dr. Christina Lane. She was giving an author event at Brockway Memorial Library in Miami Shores, and I attended and met her and was blown away by her presentation, first of all. And once I met her, she was just the most kind, down to earth person. And she immediately jumped on the opportunity to be interviewed for Art Speak. And one of the most fascinating parts of the interview and my conversations with Christina over the past few weeks is she wrote this book and decided, after many years devoted to feminist theory, film theory, and exploring the role of women in film, to focus on this one producer, specifically Joan Harrison. And she was one of, I believe, 3 female producers during this time of Hollywood, which was between the 1940s and 50s, when Alfred Hitchcock was coming to really his well-known fame. And she was hired to be Alfred Hitchcock's secretary. And as Christina discusses in her book and also in the interview, she was not a particularly good secretary, but she was brilliant when it came to actually doing the nitty-gritty work of putting together a movie and working as a producer. And so Hitchcock, he took her under his wing, and she kind of became his right-hand woman in a sense, and really was the key component to a lot of his success during that time. And it goes without saying that, you know, just about everybody who knows anything about film is at least aware of Alfred Hitchcock, and many people have seen his movies, but very few, if any, are familiar with the name Joan Harrison. And so I posed a question, which I think is an overarching theme of women in film, of why. Why do we not know about Joan Harrison? And so she talks about that in the interview. And she also talks, because I asked her about the role of women in film. She talks about how in the early days of film, when like the silent film era, film was kind of, it was cool, but it wasn't like the mainstream type of entertainment you see today. And women were welcome. Like, come on, you can do it. But as soon as, you know, Hollywood came into the scene and there was a lot of money involved, it kind of became more of a male dominated industry, where women were not really welcome or accepted. And of course, in today's era, it's better than that. But she talks about how even today, we are not at the same kind of male to female ratio in directing and producing and making movies that we were in the silent film era, when movies were first coming to existence. So the interview talks a lot about the book, the biography of Joan Harrison. Christina's work as both an author and an educator, and about overall the role of women in film, particularly Hollywood, during Alfred Hitchcock's time and today. So it's a really, really interesting interview, and anybody who is into film or a fan of Alfred Hitchcock, I think they will enjoy listening.
I think one of the, I think this is in your interview. I'm pretty sure it is, because I don't know how I would have heard it otherwise. But one of the anecdotes that she mentions in the interview is that she was at an event, and there was a guy I think had worked with Hitchcock, and she went up to him and said she was writing a book about Joan Harrison, and he dismissively looked at her, at Christina, and said, "Why would you write a book about her?" So
Yes.
even posthumously, she was being dissed
Right.
by the male film industry.
Yes, and actually, I'll add to that. So she went to this film event and she was compiling the research for this biography, and she went up to this man and was very, I think maybe he wrote a biography about Alfred Hitchcock. I don't remember precisely what his affiliation was, but she was like, "Hey, I'm writing this book about Joan Harrison," and he's like, why would you want to do that? And that was exactly kind of her motivation to continue writing the book. And what was so special was that this book was actually not only nominated, but won an Edgar Award. And this was actually during the pandemic. So it was like, I think it was like a Zoom ceremony, and she was utterly she was amazed that it was nominated and was part of that group. But when it won, she kind of broke down in tears, because not only was this a recognition for the book and her work that she put into writing this book, but it was also recognition that Joan Harrison's story does matter, and that this was a story that indeed needed to be told. And so she didn't listen to the guy who was like, why would you write a story about that? And instead, she did write the story, and it ended up winning the rather prestigious Edgar Award and an Agatha Award, I should add.
So I urge everyone to listen to your interview with Christina Lane, and I look forward to seeing you on the next edition of What's New.
Yes, likewise. Definitely watch the interview, and we'll see you next time.